Hello and welcome to a full review video of my BMW 3 Series. I've been meaning to make this video for quite a long time, so finally we're doing it. Now I'm guessing the reason you're watching this video and you've clicked on it is because you're looking to buy one of these. So you've probably already done a little bit of research, but not much. Now I've owned this car for almost a year and a half, so I think I'll be able to give you a pretty good view of what this car's like to live with. It's my only car, it's the car I use every day. And I've done a lot of driving in it, and I mean I've not exactly driven this car lightly either. I've done a good road trip around Scotland for a week doing about 1,500 miles, and I've just been to Wales as well doing a good road trip, and it's not let me down at all, because reliability is something which a lot of people moan about with BMWs, especially the F37 engine, which is what we've got in here. This is the 2-litre diesel, and this is the pre-facelift of the F31 generation. In the facelift you get basically a different engine which no longer has the dreaded timing chain problems which you will inevitably read about if you're looking to buy one of these cars. Other differences between this and the facelift are you get some slightly different lights at the front and the rear, and on the inside the cup holder is slightly different. And apart from that and the engine, obviously there's not much differences between the facelift and the pre-facelift. Now if you didn't know, this model is the M Sport model, so that means you get, in my opinion, nicer looking bumpers at the front and the back and side skirts, and obviously a different choice of wheels. If you go for an SE spec car, then that means you will have different bumpers, which in my opinion look kind of boring, and you'll probably have some boring looking wheels along with your boring side skirts. The other thing about the SE models is they actually sit slightly higher and have slightly softer suspension. So if you are after something that's going to be more comfortable, then maybe you should go for an SE model. But in my opinion, this isn't an uncomfortable car by any means, which I'll talk about later. Now obviously looks and style is a highly subjective thing. In my opinion, this is probably the best looking spec 3 Series you can get, within reason. Maybe add a splitter on the front or something like that, but M Sport, grey, blacked out, no chrome anywhere. Silver wheels. I don't like black wheels most of the time, depends what car it's on really, but if you ask me, this is one of the best looking sort of 3 Series you can get if you just go for the M Sport. So I mentioned before, this is the 2-litre diesel variant, and this is a 2013 car, so that means it's the pre-facelift. So the F37 engine. Now if you're looking to buy one of these cars, you've probably googled about the car and you may have read that the F37 engine has timing chain issues. Now I've personally not experienced that, fingers crossed, could still happen, but a lot of the things I've read are actually to do with the E90, which is the previous generation 3 Series to this, because they also had the F47 engine, just obviously a slightly earlier version. This car is currently on 91,000 miles, and I've done the last 16,000 miles in it, and I've not treated her lightly, shall we say. Like I said before, I've done road trips and stuff, and there's been a lot of times where I've just gone out just for a drive for the hell of it, because that's something that I like doing, and I've driven her really hard, but you know, it's not let me down. Now this car does have full service history, which is something that you look for of any car really, but obviously it's going to be important. And since I've had the car, I've done 2 services. I'm actually servicing this myself more regularly than the intervals say you have to, just as a bit of extra maintenance to sort of keep the car good and healthy. If you want to see how to service this car, click up here and you'll be able to see my video on that. Now reliability of cars is a difficult thing to talk about really. If you ask me, I think it's almost a subjective thing, because another person could have the exact same car as me with the same engine and mileage, and they could have had a load of problems, the timing chain could have gone and all this, but mine's not let me down at all. So it's one of them, isn't it? It's luck of the draw. Like I read something about a car that had regular services in between the normal service intervals, and that car's timing chain went, this car's hasn't, and it's all that, and everything you read online is going to be bad things, because no one's really going to post saying, yeah, my car's been reliable the whole time, unless it's in reply to someone saying their car's been unreliable. But the only things you'll see on the internet are people saying, this went wrong with my car. So the main thing to look for really is good service history, and if you are really worried, try and find one that's already had the timing chain done. I've read that on the facelift models, the timing chain is no longer really an issue. Now this interior is pretty much all you ever need from an interior really. We've not got fancy touchscreens, but then again this is a 2013 car, and I don't think the whole touchscreen takeover thing had happened then. But we've got the climate control buttons all where you need them, how you'd expect. I mean, you'd have to be pretty stupid to not be able to work out how to use it. I've got a great M Sport steering wheel. If you get the SE model again, you get a boring looking steering wheel. Got flappy paddles. I've got everything I need, really. Now I must say this big screen is the Pro Nav, which is an optional extra, which if I was you, I would definitely look out for, because it just looks so much better even when it's off. Because the non-Pro Nav screen, you have these, what I think look pretty rubbish, plastic bits on the side. And I've also got the semi-digital dials, so that means we've got an analog dial for the actual reading, but then just underneath you've got a little digital display which will show you things like sat-nav directions and what sort of driving mode you're in and things like that. Now space and comfort in here is great, really. You've got enough room and adjustment in the steering column and the seat for pretty much any sized person to be happy. On the side we've got inflatable bolsters, got a little button on the side of the chair here which inflates these, and that'll really hug you tight if you're going out for a spirited drive. If I was you, I'd definitely go for the M Sport steering wheel. It might be a little bit thick for some people, but you know, you get used to it, don't you? Now you may have already noticed, but the leather on my steering wheel after 91,000 miles is shiny and kind of not very nice to hold, really. And also, speaking of leather, this bolster here has got quite a bit of wear on it, so make sure you look out for that if you're looking to buy one as well. I'm maybe going to do a video one day of restoring this leather steering wheel, if that's even possible. I have to do some research and see if it's even savable. It might just need retrimming. In the back you've got plenty of room, there's loads of leg room. This seat's in my driving position, there's loads of headroom with this being the estate, and I think even in the saloon you'll be fine. I mean, in the middle probably still be alright as well, one foot either side, so I think you'd probably fit 3 adults pretty well in here. And you've got this as well, cup holders, that's all you need really, isn't it? Now every 3 Series Touring comes with an automatic tailgate, so you can either open it from the key, or obviously you can press the button to close it. It'll close from the button, or you have to hold the key until it's all the way closed, which is a little bit annoying, but there you go. We've also got a split folding tailgate, which if you ask me is pretty useful for just dropping things in and out if you can't be bothered opening the full boot. Now in the boot we've obviously got our parcel shelf, which you can either do that, or a cool little thing that I do, you literally just push it up slightly and it'll fly up like that, and even if you go over a big bump whilst driving, it won't flick up. You have to turn it like that, which I think is really useful. If you've got dogs, you could probably fit 2 normal sized dogs. When I say normal size, I'm talking about golden retrievers, because I've got 3 of them, and you can just about get 3 in, but maybe a little bit tight, but 2 very comfortable. Also, talking of dogs, we have this. So this is a little net that will go up there, and then you see in the roof there are these little things here that you open out. Let's get that to focus, and then your net goes into there. Now you may notice, probably not in this video, but there's some more there, and basically you can fold down the seats and use it as a full van and put the net on the back of the seats. So if you want to do that, you can put the actual parcel shelf under here, which I normally just use for an umbrella, which is quite handy because in the UK it rains a lot. So you just press a button there, and then you can pull your parcel shelf out and it slots into there nice and flat, and then we can fold the seats down. Press these buttons here, that pops off. So we come around here, and this slots in these things on the back of the seat, apparently. There you go. And then, whoa, open up these little flaps, and you can lift this up, get these in there, and in there, and then you've basically got a van. Well, you could pretty much sleep in here. It's a little bit too short for me, which is annoying. So if you want a car to sleep in, get a 5 Series. Now the standard equipment's pretty good. You get auto lights, auto wipers, air conditioning, cruise control. I'm not sure if that's a standard feature, but you'd be pretty hard pushed to find a car that doesn't have cruise control. If you want the speed limiter as well as the cruise control, now that is kind of hard to find because I think that's an option which not many people ticked. Now, also talking of options, in the iDrive, it'll say on pretty much every advert it has Bluetooth. Now that Bluetooth is just for your mobile phone for making calls. That's not for playing music, which is really annoying because I didn't know this until I'd bought the car. So if you want to be able to play music through Bluetooth, you need an option called Advanced Bluetooth. Otherwise, you have to do what I do and use this, which is plugged into the USB here in the center console. Now I don't really mind that because I'd be plugging my phone into the car anyway to charge whilst driving, because I use it for sat-nav and stuff like that. Now sat-nav, it does come with sat-nav and you can update the maps to the most up-to-date ones, but I just use Google Maps and Waze anyway because the traffic updates are much better on there. If you want Apple CarPlay, you can get that on the pre-facelift, but you will have to get an aftermarket system, I think. However, on the facelift, which has an updated iDrive system, you can get Apple CarPlay on them. So for navigation, you'll probably still need to use your phone for Google Maps or Waze if that's what you want to use, but you can still play Spotify through there and you can use the wheel to control it. Now if you've got the Pro Nav, you also get a slightly bigger wheel here, which has this sort of touchpad on top, and you can actually draw the letters that you're wanting to type if you're, say, looking for a place to put in the navigation or looking for a song or something like that. You can actually draw the letters onto there and it'll go into the iDrive. I think the idea behind that is you can sort of do that while still looking at the road. But then again, so using this and looking at that screen is not really that much more dangerous than using your phone and looking at that screen, but there you go. If you manage to find a car with an extended storage pack, they call it, you get an extra little cubby hole down here underneath where the light switch is, which I don't have. But other than that, you've got a normal glove box which can fit normal things in. You've got cup holders here which have a separate cover, which, if you ask me, that's kind of annoying. It has this separate cover that you put in. That's the wrong way. No, it's not. That you put in like that. And now on the facelifted models, you don't have this separate cover. It's just one sort of, it's a little slidey door, which I think is a much better idea. You also get this little flap here, which has a little area for something a lot smaller than a mobile phone. Don't know what you put in there, anything, change maybe. You've also got a 12-volt socket there, and you've got a 12-volt socket here, which I use for my dash cam. Right then, the driving modes. Let's start in the lowest mode, so that's Eco Pro. So Eco Pro is obviously the most economical mode you can be in. So what that does is give you a really sort of a weak throttle response, where you really have to put your foot quite far down to get any sort of power. So my foot is almost flat there and it's still not wanting to change down. And that's basically just going to give you the most sort of economical way of driving. The gearing is also geared so that it's basically going to change up as soon as it possibly can in order to keep the revs low and keep economy high. It also turns your start-stop back on, which I turn off every time I get in the car, because something I'll talk about in a little bit is the start-stop really annoys me in this car. Now if we go into the next mode up sort of thing, we've got comfort mode. Now comfort is the mode that I drive in most of the time, just because I prefer the throttle response. So the throttle response is only slightly more responsive than in eco mode, which I prefer. It's much better for getting away from roundabouts and things like that. Also the gear, it'll hold the gears ever so slightly longer, but it's not that much, to be honest. So I wouldn't sort of worry that you're going to be really uneconomical if you're driving in comfort all the time. Now you can have these cars with adaptive suspension, which is probably not, it's not a very common option, but if you want that, you can have it if you can find it. So obviously in comfort mode, that's going to be the softest suspension. When you go into sport, you're going to have firmer suspension. I'm just coming up to one of my favourite roads now, and we're going to test out the Sport and the Sport Plus modes. Well, hey. So if we're going to Sport, you'll instantly see it's changed down already, and the throttle response is right there when you want it as well. Ready to go, pretty much. Our traction control is still fully on in Sport mode though, but it means it's going to hold the gears a lot longer. But the throttle response is there, and it'll change down a lot quicker as well. So then we go into Sport Plus, and you'll see it says dynamic traction control activated. So that is going to give you a little bit of slip on the traction control, but really not a lot. Now if you want the traction fully off, you press this little button down here above the mode selection, and you hold it for a little while, and it'll say DSC off, and that's completely off. But it goes back to comfort mode then. So you're in comfort mode, but with your traction completely off, which doesn't really make much sense to me. So if you want your traction completely off, surely you want sport throttle response and gearing. But there you go. So I mean, for road driving, you're going to want it in Sport Plus anyway, because with this much power, you're not exactly going to be braking traction a lot anyway. Now my car is spec'd with the M Sport steering wheel and the flappy paddles. So to use the flappy paddles, you can either just press one, go into manual mode, but then after a short while, it is going to turn itself back into auto. So we could push the gear lever to the left and we're now locked in manual, and we can just change the gears ourselves. So you can do it with the paddles on the steering wheel, or you can actually just use the gear lever here. You can push it forwards for down gears, like you're a touring car driver, an old touring car driver, which is actually kind of fun sometimes, or you could just use the paddles. Right, I'm on one of my favourite twisty roads right now, so I'm going to talk about what the car is like when you're doing a spirited drive, and then after that we're going to talk about what it's like when you're not doing a spirited drive and when you're driving around town, how comfy it is and stuff like that, because that's obviously where everyone's going to be driving it 90% of the time. But before that, I'm going to be showing you the launch control, because this car does have launch control. Now, I think you have to have the M Sport steering wheel with the paddles. Don't quote me on that, but I'm fairly sure you have to have the paddles in order to get the launch control in this car. So to activate the launch control, you want to be in Sport Plus, stick it in drive, move this to the left so the gearbox is in sports mode. Now if you pull the paddle, one of the paddles now, you'll be in manual mode and locked in that, and that won't technically activate the launch control. So you're going to stay in sports mode, left foot firm on the brake, right foot firm on the throttle, handbrake off obviously, build up the revs, it'll say launch control active, and you're away. Nice little party trick you can show your friends. Now speaking of brakes, you can get optional upgraded brakes, and they are the bigger, the blue M Sport brakes. You can either have them on their own, or you get them in part of the M Sport Plus pack, in which you get LED headlights at the front and the Harman Kardon sound system. I've just got the standard brakes on this car, and believe me, they are really good. I don't really feel like I'm missing the big blue brakes. Although having said that, if I drove a car with the big blue brakes, I'd probably be like, oh, these are great, I need these. But yeah, I've got the standard brakes and they work well enough for me. Right then, I'm back at the bottom of my favourite road, so let's talk about this car when you're on a spirited drive. So I'm going to go into Sports Plus mode, takes me off the cruise control that I was on, and then we are going to go to the left with the gearbox to put it into sports mode. You see it's changed down, and I'm actually going to pull one of the paddles because I want to be in manual mode, so let's go. Now the first thing is mechanical grip. Now grip is going to depend on your tyres and obviously the mechanics of the car. So when I say mechanical grip, I'm talking about suspension and the way the car holds itself on the road, sort of thing. Now I've got some pretty good tyres on here as well. I've got some Hankook, I can't remember the name of them, and if you ask me, down this tight hairpin, oh, back end coming out a tiny bit there, which doesn't normally happen, to be honest. But if you get on the power early enough through the corner, then you're going to get like the one wheel spinning on the inside, which I'm pretty sure is what will have happened there. But yeah, mechanical grip, like I was saying, the car just does stay very flat considering. And when I say considering, I'm talking about the fact that this is a big 2-ton car. Change gears with that, I do like doing that from time to time. Well, actually I don't know if it's 2 tons, I'll put the actual weight on the screen, but for a big estate car, obviously you can feel the weight, and it does feel kind of heavy compared to something that's lighter, obviously. God, I'm just chatting rubbish now, but a couple of nice corners here. You know, it really does grip well through the corners. Now power, we've got 184 horsepower, and that's not that much really, is it? But you can get to the speed limit within a good few seconds. But yeah, a little bit more power wouldn't hurt. It pretty much comes in after 2,000 RPM. If you're before that, like I am now, not really much happens. So I put my foot down, not a lot, 2,000, and then you're away. So ideally, you want to be just above 2,000 all the time if you want to be in the power straight away. That's obviously down to the turbos and the turbo lag. Bit of wheel spin on the gravel there. Now I'm in Sports Plus, so the traction's not completely off. If you want the traction completely off, you hold the button like I said before. And this is a rear wheel drive car, so if you want to do big skids like this, now if you want to watch that video, I'll put a link to it here on the screen and you'll be able to go and watch it. So this car, obviously, to be able to do that, is rear wheel drive. You can get this car with xDrive, which is BMW's name for four-wheel drive. Now in the UK, I don't think you need that. However, you get all these people thinking, oh, I need it for when it snows, but it snows hardly ever in the UK. And if you've got a good set of winter tyres and you don't drive like a moron, then you're going to be fine. But I think, unfortunately, a lot of people in the UK don't know how to drive in snow and just think, foot to the floor and you're away. But no, that's not it. I've driven this car in snow, and if you really want, you can have some fun. But if you don't want to do that and you want to stay sensible, then the car's fine. You don't need to worry about snow and having four-wheel drive in the UK. It just adds weight and makes the car less economical. I suppose you more want to know how comfortable it is around town and stuff like that, rather than on a twisty road, because that's where most people are going to be using the cars, aren't they? So in town, I mean, it's fine if you ask me. No complaints. I don't need to go into massive detail, but at the end of the day, if you get the M Sport like I've got and you've got the lower, slightly firmer suspension, it's obviously going to feel like that. Now I've come from a Renault Clio into this car, so this car to me is obviously very nice. But if you're coming from a similar level car like a Mercedes C-Class or something, maybe you're looking to switch, then I would guess that the Mercedes and the Audi have slightly softer suspension. So if you're going to go for the M Sport here, you might think it's a bit firm to start off with, but eventually you will get used to it and you'll think, well, it's fine actually. If you do want a super comfy ride, then you can just go for an SE spec car, which will have the slightly higher and softer suspension. Rim size is definitely going to affect the comfort as well. I've got 19-inch rims, which I think is the biggest you can get unless you've got aftermarket wheels on there. But you can get down to 17-inch. So if you get 17-inch rims on an SE model, then it's going to be well comfy. Economy is reasonably good in this car. So if you're on a long motorway run, you'll easily see 55 miles to the gallon or more. Just a little bit more though. If you're doing mixed driving, like the majority of people, you'll easily get 45 combined. I did a long motorway journey, and which had a tiny bit of country roads and a tiny bit of town driving, but literally the majority of the motorway for probably 2.5 hours each way, and I managed to average, I think, like 52 miles to the gallon. So the economy is pretty good, I would say. I suppose I better come to some sort of conclusion for this video then, hadn't I? Basically what I'm going to say is, don't buy this one, buy the 3 litre. Everything you read on the internet is going to tell you that the 6-cylinder engines are more reliable than the 4-cylinder engines. This is a 4-cylinder engine, so if you go for the 330D, you get a 3 litre 6-cylinder engine, and you also get more power, which I think is one of the things which the car could do with a little bit more of. Or you could go for a 335D, but they only come with xDrive, so if you want to have just rear wheel drive, then you're going to have to go for the 330D, and then maybe you could just remap that or something. So I mean, overall, I've got pretty much no complaints about this car. It's fun when you want to throw it around some corners, it grips well, it's comfortable, and it looks great if you ask me. I think out of the Audi A4 and the Mercedes C-Class estates, I think this is by far the best looking one. Just make sure you watch out for what sort of specification you're going for, and like there's so many optional extras with BMWs, you just want to make sure you find the one that suits you best. I think I'm going to do another video talking about spec options because there's so much to talk about just in that area. I'm going to do a separate video for that on sort of things to look out for when you're choosing a car, because the interior in here is basically the same across the generation of 1 Series, 2 Series, 3 Series, 4 Series. The interior is the same for them cars, so I'm going to talk about, and the options are pretty much the same as well. Well, there you go, that's the review of my BMW 3 Series. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I hope that if you're looking to buy one of these cars, you've found it useful and helpful. Basically, long and short of it, go and buy one, they're great. But buy the 3-litre diesel because you get more power and more reliability, and it'll probably sound a little bit better because this car just obviously doesn't sound good, it's not made for that. Or, I mean, if you've got a lot of money, then go for a 340i Touring, because that's the goal, that's what I want one day. But we'll get there eventually. So thanks very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the video and learned something. Please subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, like the video, and hopefully going to be doing more reviews of different cars and different things like that. So if you've got a car that I can review, please send me an email to furtherdrives@gmail.com or send me a message on Instagram. So the link is in the description for my Instagram, and I'll leave the email there as well. So if you've got a car that I can review, preferably in the northwest area of the UK, then that would be immensely helpful. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe.